Today on Would You Believe It, we discover the amazing story of Anthony Wayne, the American war hero who was buried 4 times in 2 places. Hear the somber tale of the Sicilian dwarf, a young girl taken from her family and paraded around 19th century London as the smallest person on record. And meet the men and women behind the world's favorite food and see the ice cream paradise where dairy dreams come true. We'll travel to the center of the world, the official center of the world, not at the molten core of the earth, but here in a tiny town in the deserts of Southern California. And we'll take you to the Hudson River Valley, where dinosaurs come to life, and meet the man who discovered how. We'll visit the strange, the bizarre, and the unexpected on Would You Believe It? Graves. For most of us, our last resting place. But for a tortured few, this eternal slumber has a rude awakening. After a lifetime of military service, when General Anthony Wayne died in 1796 at a fort on the shores of Presque Island in the far north of Pennsylvania, he was buried, as requested, at the base of this flagpole. Because of the great distance, many of his family living 400 miles away, here in the ancestral home of Waynesboro, near Philadelphia, could not attend his funeral. So a lock of his hair was cut and sent to them to remember him by. Presidents and dignitaries across America mourned the loss of this great general. With his displays of military genius in his life, the general had made quite a name for himself. Unfortunately, the name was Mad Anthony. After one particularly daring assault, the brave general became known by this name, and it stuck. Wearing this uniform, he'd also experienced a share of defeat. Caught off guard by English General Grey, Anthony's soldiers had been massacred at Paoli, ironically less than a mile from his home. Wayne was so certain he was the cause of his men's death, he demanded his own court-martial from General George Washington. Washington refused. Later, duty called Wayne from this beloved home once more. This time, he cornered Grey and gained his revenge. While Mad Anthony became renowned for his victory, General Grey the Earl became better known for a variety of tea. Earl Grey. Mad Anthony could always turn things his way. Even as he lay dying here in this blockhouse, so far from his family graveyard, he decided a suitably conspicuous resting place for a general would be under this flagpole at the fort by the peaceful lake. 13 years had passed since Mad Anthony died. His family back here in Waynesboro grieved for him every day. Missing him so much, plans were afoot to return him home here to this family plot in the local cemetery. The idea was simple enough. Isaac, Wayne's son, would ride from Waynesboro in a sulky the long distance to Erie and meet a friend of his father's who'd help him dig up the body and bring him home. But when they opened the coffin, Anthony's body hadn't decomposed as much as they had expected, and the frozen corpse stood no chance of fitting on Isaac's cart. After several failed attempts, they decided on a more radical course of action. They would remove the clinging, rotten flesh from the corpse by boiling it in this pot, allowing them to stack the bones neatly in a bundle that would fit. After completing their morbid task, they returned with the cauldron to the open grave and poured in the frothing mass of tissue, afterwards throwing in the crude farm tools used for this makeshift operation. After this short ceremony for this portion of the general, Isaac got on his way. At the end of a long journey, Isaac appeared on the road to his home. His family waved at him as they busied themselves preparing for the family service. But as several hands helped him unload his father's remains, he made a terrible discovery. To Isaac's horror, almost all the bones had gone. He hadn't realized, as he clattered along in the sulky, the bones had worked loose, and he'd left a trail of freshly boiled bones all across Pennsylvania. He quickly placed the remaining bones in a coffin and proceeded to the reburial ceremony here at St. David's Church. Isaac never spoke about what had happened. As the remains of Anthony's remains were laid under this monument, there was one member of his family who knew every detail and would certainly have been turning in his grave had there been enough of him there to complete such a maneuver. But this quiet graveyard burial wasn't the end of Mad Anthony Wayne's story. In 1823, the blockhouse at Erie burnt down. His grave became overgrown. Out of respect, Anthony was dug up for a second time and buried again under a reconstructed blockhouse. Now, after his military burial, his family's reburial, and after his far less dignified ceremony, Mad Anthony Wayne received his fourth and final burial nearly 100 years after his first. It seems after all the relocating his body went through, Anthony had had enough and did some moving of his own. Every New Year's Eve, here along the icy, wooded roads of Pennsylvania, travelers have reported seeing a dismembered body searching through the bushes. Gliding over the snow, he stops occasionally to wrestle with a supernatural dog for what appears to be an arm or a leg bone. New Year's Eve was Anthony's birthday. What better reason for him to have this ghostly get-together? So if you're traveling the roads of Pennsylvania next New Year's Eve, you may just catch a glimpse of a confused cadaver pulling himself together. Recently, however, there have been fewer sightings of the general. Many locals believe, after all these years, Mad Anthony has decided to remain in his graves, finally able to rest in pieces. Would you believe it? Lincoln's Inn Fields, London, the Royal College of Surgeons. This is the home of London's most singular museum, the Hunterian Collection of Medical Oddities. In the 19th century, Surgeon John Hunter and his colleagues put together this collection to allow the advancement of medical knowledge. Now it is a storehouse of curiosity, a reminder that nature can sometimes be cruel, and all we can do is observe. One of the most curious stories to be found here is often overlooked. This is the skeleton of Charles Byrne, also known as the Irish Giant. Almost hidden by Byrne's looming skeleton, dwarfed by his gigantic frame, is what remains of Caroline Kwakami, known throughout London in the 1820s as the Sicilian Dwarf. Sackville Street, in the heart of London. It was a dark day in 1824 for Louis Kwakami when he arrived in this street, desperately searching for his 9-year-old daughter. The trail had led him to the house of Sir Everard Home. Beating desperately on the door, Kwakami must have presented a formidable sight. When Home looked out of his window, he mistook the identity of his visitor, telling him mysteriously that the body had been accepted and the fee was being negotiated. Kwakami's daughter had been the victim of a foul crime, body snatching. Caroline Kwakami had in her short life been a huge celebrity in London, being exhibited by her guardian, Dr. Gilligan, under the name of the Sicilian Dwarf. 20 years before P.T. Barnum was to bring over his diminutive curiosity, Tom Thumb, and 60 years before the next craze of medical freakism brought the unfortunate Elephant Man to the public eye, Miss Kwakami was the toast of London society. Everything about her was a subject of fascination. She was visited by the nobility, the royal family, and of course by London's press. Editor of the Literary Gazette, William Jerden, described to his readers in lavish detail how he caressed and saluted her. Indeed, visitors were invited to handle the reluctant child for an extra fee. They were told a story that Caroline's mother had been frightened by a monkey while she was pregnant, accounting for the girl's somewhat simian aspect. Incredibly, this ignorant myth was supported by many doctors of the time. Miss Kwakami died of TB just 15 days before her 9th birthday. As soon as news of her death was out, the bidding for her body started, and the race was on. The Royal College of Surgeons allegedly offered £500 in order that her body could be displayed here in the Hunterian collection. Her guardian, Dr. Gilligan, obviously decided to take up this rather generous offer, because it was here that the distraught father, Louis Kwakami, ended up on that dark June day. Kwakami wanted to take his daughter home so that her mother could say goodbye, but tragically, he was too late. The week before, Caroline had been post-mortemed by the surgeons of the college. As well as examining her skeleton, the surgeons created casts of her arm and foot, and this, a death mask of her face, capturing her final expression as she lay on the dissecting table. Sadly, the 22-inch tall girl whose life had been plagued by public attention is now on display for eternity. Would you believe it? Some of the greatest experts in the field have undergone the rigorous training regime here. Hours every day, behind these walls, top men and women are educated in their chosen career. Industry giants fund the research that involves classified information and human experimentation. Thankfully for these guinea pigs, this research isn't life-threatening. Most even like it. For here at Pennsylvania State University is the world's leading school of ice cream making. Since 1892, Penn State has been training the best of the best in this frosty science for the cream of ice cream companies like Ben & Jerry's, Hershey's, Baskin-Robbins, and Haagen-Dazs. Training here with expert tutors in their very own ice cream factory, students prepare for the rocky road of the ice cream industry, undergoing a grueling and intensive course, and by producing their very own original flavors. The students from around the globe are united in the pursuit of dairy product perfection, learning everything there is to know from cow to cone. And with almost 6,000 years of history, there's a lot to learn. Around 4,000 years BC, Alexander the Great was said to enjoy adding ice to fine wines. And when Emperor Nero first sent his fastest chariots to snow-capped mountains to collect ice for him, he had no idea his penchant for nectar-flavored snow would last so long. Marco Polo brought a recipe for water ices back from the exotic East and introduced the new flavor to the courts of Europe. In England, Charles I was so pleased with the taste, he paid his cook a king's ransom just for keeping his recipe a secret. And so when the chef let the secret slip, he received the first and worst ice cream headache in history. Ice cream first arrived in the United States in the 1700s and became a firm, or rather soft, favorite with the sweet-toothed locals who added larger and larger amounts of cream and sugar to this ice-cold concoction. In 1904 at the St. Louis World's Fair, an enterprising businessman introduced a convenient handheld addition to ice cream consumption. Finally evolving to its present form, ice cream had arrived. Tom Palchek is the university's creamery manager.
I think ice cream, by the fact that it's a sweet product, it just settles your nerves. It just makes things a little less edgy and a little less stressful, regardless of your economic stature or your background. I mean, everybody just enjoys this product universally. It evokes memories of our childhood. It is consumed universally by all segments of the population, and its history has always been one of an exotic, high echelon, upper class product until it was essentially standardized in the United States in the 18th and 19th century.
Today, ice cream is big business. Here at the university's own outlet store alone, annual sales amount to almost $2 million. While some of the course's flavors can quickly become bestsellers, they aren't allowed to sell them commercially. But that doesn't mean you won't be able to taste them, because the course is funded in part by the ice cream manufacturers themselves. And the deal is, they can get the pick of any flavors that take their fancy. Familiar names such as Death by Chocolate or Mint Chocolate Chip are both products that were first churned out here. However, while other students enjoy an ice cream to get their minds off theories and science, for the people on the course, there's no such escape.
The base ice cream mix would have a vanilla background flavor in it, to which the other flavor adjuncts are added. And this is to take the edge off of the ingredients such as condensed skim or the cream or the milk powder. We want to take that edge off of that flavor. The color is a part of that taste. It influences the way you think about the product that you're about to eat.
Today they're making a new flavor you're unlikely to see on the shelves for a while. Monster Mash.
Monster Mash is a brand new flavor just made today for the first time. It's an orange colored ice cream with cookie pieces in it, fudge pieces, and a ribbon of caramel throughout the product.
At any one time, the creamery here is producing 95 different flavors in rotation, selling ice cream like hotcakes to the 52,000 students and faculty members who annually eat 186,000 gallons of ice cream. At home games, football fans buy over 14,000 cones, which would build a cone a mile high. Such a group of ice cream lovers would surely be able to tell us the names of their favorite flavors.
Heath Bar Chunky Chocolate,
Apple Cobbler Crunch, Butter Pecan, Apple Crunch,
Teeny Beanie Chocolate, Mint Chocolate Chip Bittersweet Mint Strawberry, Peanut Butter, Coffee Break, Cookie Dip, Espresso Fudge Pie,
Lemon, Lime,
Bittersweet Mint, French Vanilla,
Happy
Death by Chocolate,
Vanilla with peanut butter.
The school is understandably proud of its course, which is always in great demand, and it's easy to see why.
It's so nice to see a smile come across the face from someone who may be having a bad day or just the anticipation of what this product's going to taste like. It is so enjoyable to see that smile crack right across the face from ear to ear.
Where else in the world can you get a degree in making people smile? Would you believe it? Every center of the world has its landmark, like London's Westminster Palace, New York's Statue of Liberty and its imposing skyline, or Paris's Eiffel Tower. But take this staircase up the Eiffel Tower and you'll no longer find yourself in Paris, but another center of the world. The center of the world. The point officially recognized by international geographical institutes, not in the fiery depths below ground, but here in Felicity, California. This tiny waypoint in Imperial County in the far south of California has only one house, 2 small rows of condos, and a population of just 5 people. But it has a post office, a railroad station, a visitor center and cafeteria, and a designation that most cities on the planet would kill for. In 1985, French entrepreneur Jacques-André Istel realized nowhere in the world had actually called itself the center of the world. He'd already put the town of Felicity on the map. He founded the settlement and named it for his wife. Now he had a greater challenge. He'd always seen his wife Felicity as the center of his world. Now he wanted the town named after her to become the center of everyone's world. But California's strict planning laws require there exist a justification written in folklore or local history before you can name such areas of interest. Luckily for Jacques, a fairy tale had been written about the center of the world called Ko, the good dragon of the center of the world, set in a small desert town called Felicity. Happily, Jacques owned the copyright of the book because he was the author and he'd set the story in his town. So on May 21, 1985, the Board of Supervisors of Imperial County were finally able to name this spot as the center of the world. Shortly after, the French government's National Geographical Institute officially recognized the site and notified governments worldwide the center of the world had been discovered, and it was in Southern California. This pyramid houses the exact grid reference located by global positioning satellites. Dignitaries and officials from all over the world have been invited here to the pyramid to place a foot on this solid bronze plaque, which marks the exact spot, and receive a special certificate to commemorate the event. In celebration of its new globally important status and to keep in step with its international counterparts, Jacques won a bid to buy a section of the central staircase of the Eiffel Tower that was being replaced during restoration work. But the move was no come down for these steps, taken from a world-famous structure standing triumphantly over the center of Paris. This humble staircase is now a main attraction towering over the center of the world. Now officially pointed out on the map, thousands of visitors brave the desert heat each year to come and see this somewhat eccentric venture for themselves. And because most people have traveled for many hours to get here, the mayor is always the first to greet them.
When we first started out, of course it was smaller, but people were quite perplexed and they thought that we were nuts. As this place has become established and as people understand that it is based on a fairy tale, and they like it. They enjoy putting their foot at the center of the world and receiving a certificate, and for a modest $1 fee, they don't feel taken advantage of.
Jacques' hope is that one day a great many more people will visit his out-of-the-way attraction, not just for the novelty, but for a more serious scheme he has plans for. As the people of the world integrate and disperse ever farther afield, Jacques has established Felicity as the International Center for Memories. For a small fee, you can inscribe any name you would like to have remembered here, on this, the Wall for the Ages, where future generations will be able to come, read your name, then find out about you on a computer database. In an idyllic, peaceful setting against the backdrop of distant mountains, this wall is engraved with the names of American servicemen who were killed in the Korean War. The wish is that people's friends and colleagues also be remembered, then special occasions and achievements too. The Wall for the Ages has been designed to stand for 4,000 years. These granite slabs weighing 477 pounds each are mounted on a steel structure almost 4 times stronger than government earthquake requirements specify. Currently, there are just 2 walls, but this building work is stage 2 of the project, as word spreads of this idea and demand for space on the wall increases. The existing walls are the first of many, as shown in these plans. The ultimate goal is for hundreds of walls, watched over by a central temple for eternity in the improved City of Felicity. The most recent addition to this plan is an internet site, where Jacques encourages people to send in family photographs and memoirs to be stored here for future generations to study. Although geologist and Jules Verne may have problems with the naming of this location, And while no earthly force draws people to this place named after a fairy tale, one man's dream will ensure visitors gravitate to this center of the world for a long time to come. Would you believe it? If you'd heard there was a place where you could watch a dinosaur being born, your thoughts would immediately turn to science fiction and dino-filled islands in the Pacific. But here at the Jonas Studio, it's an everyday occurrence. And this is not an island. This is upstate New York. Here, artists and sculptors have been creating magnificently detailed creatures for nearly 100 years. Louis Paul Jonas, a Hungarian artist and scientist, decided to settle here near the town of Hudson in this old dairy farm and realize his dream. Beginning as a taxidermist, his dream was to sculpt every creature of the earth. He started with the exotic animals of the wilderness of Africa: zebras, lions, giraffes, beasts of all kinds, taking pains to study his subjects in the greatest possible detail, bringing these creatures to people who'd never seen such animals before. And once he'd finished over 400 of them, he began something more of a challenge. Creatures which had not been seen for 63 million years, dinosaurs. Before the days of computer graphics and special effects, Jonas was combining his skills as an artist with his knowledge as a scientist to bring these monsters to life. Binding science and art, Jonas created miniature masterpieces, but he didn't stop with these. His creations became larger and larger, eventually using 1,800 pounds of clay to sculpt his first mold for the Mastodon. 15 feet high and 20 feet long. He produced 9 full-size dinosaurs, supplying them to museums where they would be studied by the most critical eyes. Using many of Louis Paul's original molds, the work is continued today by his grandson, David Merritt. Now the list of clients extends to film studios, restaurants, and theme parks. But these craftsmen use the same love, artistry, and dedication for each piece. Because the finished pieces would be too large to make in a single mold, each casting is made in smaller sections. The fiberglass casts are wired together and given a final coat. This mastodon will eventually undergo the complex task of being covered in a coat of fur based on samples of mammoth hair found in the Arctic. While many of the skills are very old, the prices have certainly moved with the times. This mastodon hair, made from a special blend of horsehair and plastic, costs $10,000 for just one roll. And when completed, one of the more popular dinosaurs can cost as much as $150,000. But business is booming, and recent interest in dinosaurs has sparked a monstrous rise in sales. While genetic engineering threatens to reintroduce dinosaurs to the world, we can be thankful, at least for the time being, it is only plastic engineering which breathes life into these creations from the Jonas Studio. Would you believe it?